So we've talked about how to move already, and now we're going to move on to the second main thing that you need to know, which is how to shoot. Now shooting is a 5-step process, but it's all fairly simple. We can just jot through the other 5 steps real quick. The first step is just check range and line of sight. Now we use true line of sight throughout Armoured Digital, and we measure our true line of sight from the sensor pod on top of each of the vehicles. You'll notice it there. Now range depends on the weapon system that you're firing. All projectile weapons, which includes Gorse and missile weapons, will fire out to 30 inches. All explosive weapons, which includes both high explosive and rocket weapons, will fire out to 24 inches. And energy weapons, which is both laser and plasma, will fire out to 18 inches. Next step is to determine the modifiers. There are 2 positive and 2 negative modifiers that might affect our shooting. The 2 negative ones are, first of all, if the unit has moved at least 8 inches during the turn. Now they can achieve this with a single order, or with multiple orders that move them at least 8 inches at any stage during that turn. Or if the target is in cover. We define cover by saying if any tiny part of the facing area of that target is hidden, then that target counts as being in cover, whether you can see the tip of their barrel or all bar the left rear mudguard, for example. The positive modifiers are if the target has fired at any stage during the turn, or if the target is in sensor lock. Sensor lock is achieved by having the target within sensor range. Just like comms, you take your sensor stat, multiply it by 4 in inches to give you your sensor range. Passive sensors require line of sight to lock on the target, and active sensors do not require line of sight to lock on the target. Next we roll our dice. Roll a number of dice equal to your firepower. So if you have firepower 3, roll 3 dice. Firepower 4, roll 4 dice. When you roll your dice, you then take your modifiers and add +1 or take away 1 from the roll, depending on what sort of modifier they are. So for example, a target that has moved, is in cover and has shot, you've got 2 negative ones being the movement and the cover, and 1 positive one, which is the shooting, giving you an overall score of a 5+ needed to hit. So then you check your dice to find out which ones have hit and which ones haven't. Any dice that have hit go into what we call a hit pool. Any dice that scores a natural 6 will cause what we call an additional damage effect, or ADE. You roll on a separate chart to determine which ADE you score, and then apply that particular effect before you go on to rolling to save. Most of the ADEs will simply cause a point of damage to that stat and reduce the stat by 1. However, protection compromise will reduce your saves, and rolling a 6, which gives you a lucky hit, will add 1 more hit to the hit pool. Then we move on to save. The target rolls as many dice as it has a protection stat. Typically a protection stat will be 3 with the tanks in the starter set, so you roll 3 dice. Any dice that scores the minimum required score to save or higher will knock one of those hits out of the hit pool. They have no effect on the additional damage effects, they already occur on the vehicle. Determining what score you need to save depends on the weapon type and the protection type. So this Rhino has a projectile weapon, which is fantastic against hardened armour, and therefore the Elephant needs a 5+ to save. It's only average against the reflective armour of the Wolf, so the Wolf needs a 4+ to save. And against the Rhino, which has reactive arms specifically designed to deflect projectiles, the Rhino will be saving on a 3+. Our target here has 2 hits in the hit pool and requires a 4+ to save. It saves 1, leaving 1 hit in the hit pool that goes on to become a point of damage. Each point of damage reduces the protection stat. The next time the unit takes damage, it will have a lower protection stat and therefore roll fewer dice to save. Once the protection stat is reduced to 0, that vehicle is destroyed. Okay, so that's how shooting works. As you can see, 5 steps to step through, but they're all fairly simple ones, and once you get into the flow of it, it happens really fast. Now, let's go on and have a look at the next video where you can see a whole turn put together, including all of the moving and all the shooting. Thanks guys, see you then.